party of Ali. That's party, like political party, not party, like it's 1999. I already made that joke this semester, but that's okay. And remember, they want Ali because he is Muhammad's blood relative, Muhammad's adopted son, Muhammad's son-in-law, and the first male convert to Islam. Like, he's got it all. He's the total package. And remember as well during this time period that the Islamic Empire is expanding and expanding and expanding, so the stakes are really high and getting higher every year in terms of what kind of control we're talking about. And remember as well that one of the arguments going on this time period is, what kind of leader are we talking about when we talk about a leader in the Muslim community? Are we talking about a religious leader? Are we talking about a political leader? Or are we talking about someone that kind of fuses both together? And that this eventuates in a couple of different events, one of which is at the end of the rightly guided caliphate period. You have the establishment of the Umayyad Caliphate, by a guy named Muawiyah, Muawiyah. I don't have time for a tangent on spelling of Arabic names. Damn. You should all read the introduction, the editor's preface to T. Lawrence's 7 Pillars of Wisdom. One of these days when you have time for such things. The Umayyad, as part of the sort of establishment of the Umayyad Caliphate, one of the major early events is in 680. Remember that Hussein, Ali's second son, is martyred at Karbala, and that this is sort of the breaking point of the Sunni-Shia split. They're already dividing up to this point. This is like the thing that really breaks them apart. Yes?
Who killed him?
Muawiyah, the leader of the Umayyad Caliphate. The Umayyads take control from 661 to 750. This is the period of the largest growth and expansion of Islam. You're going all the way across the coast of North Africa. You're spreading up into the Iberian Peninsula. You get into France a little bit until the Battle of Tours in 732. You've already spread up the entire coast of Levant. You're starting to edge into Byzantine territory in what we call today Turkey. You're going east all the way through all the way to the eastern border of what we today call Iran. Huge, gigantic fucking empire. But remember, the Umayyad period is not looked upon fondly in anybody's history books from an Islamic point of view, because the Umayyad Caliphate took an explicitly political and not religious leadership position. And so they created all sorts of enemies among the religious scholars who were trying to tell them, like, hey, this is not how an Islamic empire should be run. You can't call yourself an Islamic empire and then do shit like this. They angered people such as non-Arab converts to Islam, who had been promised equality and equity within the religion, but were treated badly by the Umayyads and not given certain important positions and blah, 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 blah. And obviously the Shia Muslims who had been targeted by the Umayyads were unhappy as well. And eventually these factors all sort of conspire, and the Umayyads are overthrown and replaced with the Abbasid Caliphate, which goes from 750 to 1253. Or 58. Damn. See, you're getting all these, like, brain farts on camera. It's terrible. It's 1258. I think. I'm uncertain now. Okay. Anyway, the Abbasid Caliphate is remembered, though, as not just the golden age of Islam, although it's referred to that, but also, I would argue, the golden age of Western civilization. The Abbasids, rather than focusing on expansion and conquest, focus instead on development. And they invest heavily in the arts and the sciences, in universities and education. They create the first paper mill in the West by bringing technology west from China. They found universities. They start collecting materials from Greece and Rome and Persia and translating them into Arabic and preserving them. You see advancements in medicine and architecture and astronomy and mathematics. It's a wonderful time to be alive. It's great. It's fantastic. It's awesome. And remember, I sort of encapsulated the whole Abbasid ethos in the statement from the Hadith of Muhammad that better is the ink of the scholar than the blood of the martyr. It was nicely encapsulated sort of the whole Abbasid approach to things. But the Abbasid Empire, being so large, also runs into trouble because it's so large and the mail moves kind of slow back then. Not like it doesn't take years, but it takes a while for the mail to move. And what this means is that the Abbasid Empire sort of starts to fragment among itself, so that you get a lot of people with local autonomy, like these little miniature kingdoms emerge, and they're all saying, yeah, sure, the Abbasid guy over there in Baghdad is the boss, but they're really running things how they want to at the local level. So that when the Mongols finally come through and do sack Baghdad in 1253 or 1258, God, that really bothers me, I can't remember which year it is. Thank you. 1258. It is a disaster for the Abbasids, but not necessarily for their kingdoms, who are all just like, okay, we'll just keep going. And these local kingdoms just sort of officially bring up their sort of local autonomy and just say, okay, we're doing this now. And this is the end, not just the Abbasid Caliphate, but the end of any sort of caliphate that can claim sort of universal Muslim allegiance, right? Where even if it's only in word, even if it's only lip service, there has not been another caliphate where all Muslims are like, yeah, that guy's in charge. This brings us up to the period of the Crusades and the Great Schism and all that stuff. Remember that as Islam is spreading, as it's taking over these places, it's not like everyone, everywhere the Islamic Empire touched suddenly converted to Islam overnight. Remember that it's mostly a matter of government change and not a matter of the belief change of the local population, that the conversion of these populations to Islam is something that happens over the course of centuries. As more and more Muslim cultures there, as people see it more and more often, you're having more and more people convert. And these regions become, which had been, especially in North Africa, had been traditionally Christian, become increasingly Muslim over the next couple of centuries. And at the same time that that is going on, you have the Great Schism happening in Christianity, which happens in 1054, where the Roman Catholic Church in the West asserts a sort of unique authority that it feels like it has by changing the Nicene Creed. Whereas the churches in the East, what becomes the Eastern Orthodox Church today, are like, dude, you can't do that without asking us. And this leads right to that silly excommunication fight. And it's really not, it's not that they suddenly decided they don't like each other and they break up. This is really the culmination of, again, years of build-up and development where the cultural and language and ritual traditions in these regions had grown separately and done their own thing for a while. And then you add the politics in it and it just becomes too much and they separate, they break up. And we talked about how in our time period right now, there's been a number of meetings between the leadership of the Roman Catholic Church and the leadership of the Eastern Orthodox Church to try to repair that breach. Not coincidentally, about 50 years later, the leader of the church in Rome, Pope Urban II, sends a whole bunch of crusaders east into the quote-unquote Holy Land on a crusade to recapture the Holy Land for Christians. And remember, he's explicitly expansionistic about this. He argues that it's going to give people access to more resources. They're going to start murdering each other. They're going to start murdering people who don't believe the same things, and that's good, and then they'll have more land and more food and more money for everyone. Yay. And also, by the way, guys, the Pope's the guy in charge. So, like, your kings might be marching out, but he's doing it because I said so. Right, so this is also, again, a political thing, and also it doesn't hurt that we're sending soldiers under my banner down through Eastern Orthodox controlled territory. Crusaders are successful at first. They recapture Jerusalem in 1099. That kingdom lasts for about 100 years in 1187 in the Battle of Hattin. Saladin, who is a really cool guy you should all go read about, defeats the Crusader army, and the Crusades after this are significantly less and less and less and less and less and less and less productive and successful. Yes?
Okay, so they defeat the Crusader army. Who's they?
Sorry. A group of people led by Saladin, and that's all I want you to know. It's a Muslim army. He represents a group of people known as the Fatimids at the time, but y'all don't need to know that.
And where did they take over?
Jerusalem.
Okay.
Which is a little bit more south than that, but not by a lot.
And how do you spell, sorry, how do you spell the name of the people that took them? Saladin. Okay.
Okay. Protestant Reformation happens. We just talked about that, so I feel like it should be relatively fresh in y'all's minds. We talked about the 5 pillars of Islam. We talked about Jewish beliefs and practices. Other things we talked about in this unit are things like theodicy. Don't forget that stuff, right? We've talked about like the problem of evil and things of that nature. I will be asking you questions about that. All right, anything else? That was the short version. How do you, did that help at all? Yeah.
How did the Abbasid Caliphate lose Shia support?
By killing them.
Okay.
Yes. As it turns out, murder makes people not like you as much after that. They don't want to hang out.
Ali is Shia.